Let me share the screen in the group. Share the link in the group and then I'll announce. Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. This evening, we are very fortunate to have MUKTA MATAJÍ with us to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam summaries. And we are doing 4th canto. We are today doing 21st chapter, instructions by Maharaj Prithu. Hare Krishna, MUKTA MATAJÍ, Danvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining and giving your valuable association this evening and enlightening us on this topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. I now hand over the call to you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Bhakti Sangha Japat group team, for hosting and very kindly giving me the opportunity to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome everybody to Srimad Bhagavatam chapter-wise summary series. Today's topic is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 21, Instructions by Maharaj Prithu. Let's begin with the prayers for auspiciousness. Om Jnanatimrandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurumitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishbhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So let's. Okay. So in Canto 4, in the previous chapter, whatever we have read was Maharaj Prithu completes his 99 Ashwamedh Yagya. Just then, as soon as he completes the 99 Ashwamedh Yagya, Indra takes away the horse. So Maharaj Prithu gets angry, and just then Lord Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena along with Lord Indra and glorifies Maharaj Prithu with beautiful words. And then he instructs Prithu Maharaj to forgive Indra because he had disturbed the execution, in spite of him disturbing the execution of his 100 sacrifices. Maharaj Prithu then offers prayers, and the Lord blesses him and departs for his abode. Thereafter, all the demigods, kings, priests who had come from the spiritual sky also returned after blessing Prithu Maharaj. So in today's class, we hear how after completing 99 Ashwamedh Yagya and pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead by beautiful prayers, Maharaj Prithu enters his city, which was decorated very beautifully, and how he was very opulently welcomed by his citizens. Then Prithu Maharaj enters his palace. All this is described in first 6 verses. After hearing this, Prithu Maharaj expresses his desire to hear more about Prithu Maharaj. So Maitreya Muni continues. First, he describes Prithu Maharaj's qualities, his physical appearance, and then Prithu Maharaj's beautiful speech and how Prithu Maharaj addresses his citizens. After instructing his citizens, Prithu Maharaj seeks the blessings of everybody present in the assembly. First, all the demigods, denizens of Pitraloka, the Brahmanas, and the saintly persons who are present in the meeting congratulates him and express their goodwill. Then all the saintly Brahmanas address Prithu Maharaj, and finally all the citizens address Prithu Maharaj. Now let's go in a little more detail. So after completing the Ashwamedh Yagya and pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offering beautiful prayers to him, in first 6 verses, it is described that Maharaj Prithu enters his city, which was very beautifully decorated with pearls, flower garlands, beautiful cloth, golden gates. The entire city was perfumed with highly fragrant incense. Fragrant water distilled from sandalwood and oguru herb was sprinkled everywhere on the lanes, roads, and small parks throughout the city. Street crossings looked very attractive with bunches of fruits and flowers, as well as pillars of banana trees and betel nut branches. At the gate of the city, all citizens received him with many auspicious articles like lamb, flowers, and yogurt. Srila Prabhupada elaborates on that. Here it means that Ki Maharaj Prithu was welcomed with an artika, with lamps and other auspicious items. And citizens offered Maharaj Prithu unbroken fruits, flowers, wetted grains, varied minerals, and lamps. All these presents were considered very auspicious. So you can see how opulent the welcome was, very grand welcome. The king was also received by many beautiful unmarried girls whose bodies were bedecked with various ornaments, especially with earrings which collided with one another. Srila Prabhupada explains here that unmarried girls are clean internally as well as externally, and hence they are considered auspicious members of the society. So it was auspicious for them to be there. As he entered the palace, conch shells, kettle drums were sounded, priests chanted Vedic mantras, professional reciters offered different prayers, and with all these glories and opulent welcome, one would think that one would become very happy and elated. But it is mentioned here that in spite of all this ceremony to welcome him, the king was not the least bit affected. This shows that the king had no pride in spite of having extraordinary wealth and power. The analogy given here by Srila Prabhupada is of a tree that is full of fruits and flowers, and that doesn't stand erect. It has to bend. So it bends downwards to show submissiveness. So both the important citizens and the common citizens welcomed the king very warmly, and Maharaj Prithu also bestowed upon them their desired blessings. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the king must be very approachable by the citizens. And therefore, whenever Maharaj Prithu met the citizens, he immediately fulfilled their desires or mitigated their grievances. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that he reciprocated by worshipping both the common man as well as the famous citizens by taking off his jacket and turban and offering them. So that's how he reciprocated. So whatever he had on him, he gave away that. Maitreya Muni says that the king Prithu was greater than the greatest soul and was therefore worshipable by everyone. So he performed many glorious activities during his reign over the surface of the world. and was always magnanimous. After achieving such great success and a reputation which spread throughout the whole universe, he at last obtained the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out the word Mahatma, consisting of, so that means that among the Mahatmas, consisting of Uttama, Madhyama, and Kanishta, he was Uttama, the highest class. And Srila Prabhupada says that Maharaj Prithu was a Kshatriya and he discharged his Kshatriya duties perfectly. And thus, at the ultimate end of his life, he will be promoted to the transcendental world, which is called Parampadam. So here it's already says what will happen in future. So this Parampadam or the Vaikuntha planets can only be achieved by devotional service, which is the perfection of life. This whole conversation is happening between Maitreya Muni and Vidurji. So here Vidurji expresses the desire to hear more about Prithu Maharaj because his activities are so pious and auspicious. So Vidur said that Maharaj Prithu was adored by highly qualified persons. He had the strength of Vishnu. Even the demigods benefited by his actions when he milked the earth in the form of a cow, which we already heard in detail in chapter 18. He leveled Mother Earth's surface. We heard about that. He performed 99 Ashwamedh Yagya, and he was praised by none other than Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma. So Maitreya Muni continues. He says King Prithu lived in a tract of land between the two great rivers, Ganga and Yamuna. So Srila Prabhupada points out that this area, although he ruled the entire world, this verse says or indicates that this area where it is between the rivers Ganga and Yamuna is called Brahmavarta, which shows that he lived in India. And therefore, even in prehistoric times, we can understand that the kings from India not only knew all the places of the world or on the earth, but they also ruled the entire world. The word Eva here in the verse indicates like the ordinary living being. Srila Prabhupada explains that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his incarnations, his devotees, and Guru or Acharya must not be considered as ordinary people because they are not subjected to karmic reactions. So that is, we must not think that he was very opulent because he was enjoying the results of his past pious activities. This is only applicable to ordinary living beings. And as mentioned before, it does not apply to Lord's incarnations and great devotees. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborates on this, says that although he was the avatar of the Lord and as well as the Lord's great devotee, he did not have any prarabdha karma. Those are the karmas that are experienced in the present life because of the result of actions from the previous lives. So yet out of great humility that came from his bhakti, he thought that he would use up all his pious and impious karmas by experiencing happiness and distress in this life, just like a conditioned soul. This is the quality of an acharya or great leader who teaches by modeling their own behavior. After describing Maharaj Prithu's glorious activities, now Maitreya Muni begins to narrate. So once upon a time, King Prithu initiated a great sacrifice in which great saintly sages, brahmanas, demigods from higher planetary systems and great saintly kings known as Rajarshis were all assembled together. Srila Prabhupada points out that although King Prithu's residential quarters were in India, the demigods also participated in great sacrifice that he performed. And it also indicates that in those days, the demigods used to come to this planet. And we also hear that Arjuna, Yudhishthir Maharaj, and many others were able to visit higher planetary systems. So this proves that there was interplanetary communication in those days. Of course, it would be via suitable airplanes and space vehicles. So in that great assembly, Maharaj Prithu first of all worshipped all the respectable visitors according to their respective positions. So it is explained in the purport by Srila Prabhupada that according to the Vedic system, the reception of great exalted personalities is very important. The first procedure in receiving guests is to wash their feet. We see in many places in our Vedic literature, glories of washing the feet has been described. So for example, when Maharaj Yudhishthir performed the Rajsuya Yagya, Sri Krishna took charge of washing the feet of the visitors. In Vaman Avatar, when Vaman Dev was measuring the space in 3 steps, Brahmaji washed his lotus feet. Sri Krishna also washed the feet of Sudamaji when he visited him in Dwarka. So in the same way, we see that Charnamrit plays a very significant role in our daily sadhana and bhakti in all ISKCON temples. So after warmly welcoming all the guests and visitors, Maharaj Prithu stood up in the midst of the assembly and he appeared like a full moon that arose among the stars. So now Maitreya Muni describes Prithu Maharaj's physical appearance. So he was tall and sturdy, his complexion was fair, his arms were full and broad, his eyes were as bright as the rising sun, his nose was straight, his face very beautiful, and his personality grave. His teeth were set beautifully in a smiling face. The chest of Maharaj Prithu was very broad. His waist was very thick, and his abdomen, wrinkled by lines of skin, resembled the construction of a leaf of a banyan tree. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains beautiful abdomen shaped like a banyan leaf means that with the tip pointing down indicates broad at the top and narrow at the bottom, spread with 3 lines horizontally. His navel was coiled and deep, means twirling clockwise. His thighs were of a golden hue, means he had limbs like golden pillars, and his instep was arched, means the front parts of his feet were raised. The black slick hair on his head was very fine and curly. His neck was like a conch shell and was decorated with auspicious lines. He wore a very expensive dhoti and there was a nice wrapper on the upper part of his body. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains or describes Prithu Maharaj as decorated with all beauty and was an ocean of humility. So now it is stated in verse 18 that because Prithu Maharaj initiated to perform the sacrifice, he had to keep his valuable dress aside, and therefore his natural bodily beauty was visible. It was very pleasing to see him put on a black deer skin and wear a ring of kusha grass on his finger. For this increased the natural beauty of his body. It appears that Maharaj Prithu observed all regulative principles before he performed the sacrifice. How do we know this? Srila Prabhupada explains that the face is the index of the mind and bodily features are in accordance with one's past deeds. So since Prithu Maharaj is an incarnation of the Lord, his beauty and his effulgence could be seen. Just to encourage the members of the assembly to enhance their pleasure, King Prithu glanced over them with eyes that seemed like stars in a sky wet with dew. The next Maitreya Muni describes his speech. His speech was very beautiful. It was full of metaphorical language, clearly understandable. It's very pleasing to hear. His words were all grave and certain. That means they were without any doubt or ambiguity, very clear. He expressed his personal realization of the absolute truth in order to benefit all. So these are also the qualities of good speech. So a lot of takeaways from this chapter because through his Maharaj Prithu's teachings and his interactions or reciprocation with people, we get to learn a lot of things. So then King Prithu address the gentle members of that assembly. So Srila Prabhupada explains the use of the word sadhavo here. It means all great souls or gentle members, which is very significant because in any gathering of this sort, there are different types of men. And because Prithu Maharaj was a great king, he must have had several enemies present in the assembly as well. Therefore, he first addressed all the honest people, not caring for the envious people or atheists. He first wished all good fortune to them. Then he called for attention of all the great souls who had come to attend the meeting to kindly hear his prayers attentively. As a great king of the entire world, he could have presented himself as a royal authority who is empowered to command everybody. But he did not do that. Instead, he was so humble, meek, and honest that he presented his statement like an ordinary conditioned soul. He said, a person who is actually inquisitive must present his decision before an assembly of noble souls. Again, he's addressing the great souls, sages, and saintly persons present in the assembly. He also presented his statement for approval. That also is a very important quality. In his address, he said, Aham Dandadharo Raja, meaning, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, I have been appointed the king of this planet, and I carry the scepter, Danda, to rule the citizens, protect them from all danger, and give them employment according to their varnashram. So according to Vedic system, the king is considered a representative of Godhead and is offered respects by the citizens as gods in the human form. So as a representative of the Supreme Lord, the king maintains all living entities, especially human beings, to elevate them to the highest perfection. It is the duty of the king or the government to ensure that people observe the social order and that they are also employed in their respective occupational duties. So it is the duty of the king or the government to re-establish social order in terms of occupational duties and the modes of material nature. For that, that will make the entire world population actually civilized. So what will happen if he does not observe the institutional functions of the four social orders? The human society will be no better than an animal society in which there is no tranquility, peace, and prosperity. So the word praja in this verse refers to one who takes birth, not only human beings, but also animals, trees, and every other living entity. So animals are also considered to be the citizens of a land in which they have been born. And they also have the right to live and exist. So it is therefore the duty of the king to give all living entities protection and food. Therefore, King Maharaj Prithu guaranteed protection for Prajanam, all living entities who took birth in his kingdom. So he continues, I think that upon the execution of my duties as a king, I shall be able to achieve the desirable objectives described by experts in Vedic knowledge. And this destination is achieved by the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the seer of all actions. The word Brahmavadina in this verse means the expert in the Vedic knowledge. Brahma refers to Vedas, which are also known as Shabda Brahma or transcendental sound. Transcendental sound is not ordinary sound, and evidence from the Vedic literature should be accepted as final authority. So when a responsible king executes his duty by giving proper protection to all living entities in his kingdom, he pleases and satisfies the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he is promoted to the heavenly planetary system. So this is what it means. So therefore, when a living entity executes their appointed duties according to their varna and ashram, then the Supreme Lord is satisfied, and this is his perfection of life. So the word kama sandoha means achievement of the desired result. So everyone desires to achieve the ultimate goal of life, but due to gross ignorance about God, his activities, his rulings, the laws of nature. People such as atheists, scientists, and philosophers think that a man's life has no plan. And this ignorance is leading the civilization towards a very risky and dangerous life situation. And why is that? So Maharaj Prithu explains in the next verse. Any king who does not teach his citizens about their respective duties in terms of Varna and Ashram, but simply takes tolls and taxes from them, is liable to suffer for the impious activities which have been performed by the citizens. So in addition to such a degradation, the king also loses his own fortune. So here Maharaj Prithu is trying to explain the laws of nature that are very subtle. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that the king receives 1/6 part of the pious acts of his citizens in his next life, if he follows all the follows all the occupational duty of a Kshatriya king. So if he does not protect his citizens, they take away his pious deeds and he has to suffer their sins. So it's reciprocal, it's mutual. Everybody is dependent on each other. So a king or a governor or a president should not take the opportunity to occupy his post without discharging his duty. So he must teach the people within the state, how to follow their duties according to their Varna and Ashram. If a king neglects to give such instructions and simply levies taxes, then all those who share in that collection, that is all the government servants, the head of the states, they are liable to share the impious activities of the general masses. So Srila Prabhupada warns here that the laws of nature are very subtle and we have to be very careful. So therefore, Prithu Maharaj says, my dear citizens, for the welfare of your king after his death, you should show mercy upon me and execute your duties properly in terms of your positions of Varna and Ashram, and should always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within your hearts. So in this way, you will not only protect your own interest, but you will also bestow mercy upon your king for his welfare after his death. So I request all the pure-hearted demigods, forefathers, and saintly persons to support my proposal. Why is he asking for support? So it's explained, because after death, the result of the action is equally shared by its doer, its director, and its support. So in this verse, the words Adhokshaja Diya means Krishna consciousness. So now the king and the citizens should both be Krishna conscious. Otherwise, both of them will be doomed to lower species of life after death. So responsible government must teach Krishna consciousness very vigorously for the benefit of all. So one may wonder why Maharaj Prithu is addressing his citizens in the way of teachings. So it's because his mood is to educate his citizens into Krishna consciousness. Because if all the people of the state, including the government servants, are taught the religious principles, then everyone suffer in different ways for their own actions. But they will not be responsible for the outcome of each other after death. So that's why King Maharaj Prithu is explaining all these things to his citizens. It is said that government of Prithu Maharaj was perfect because it was administered according to the orders of Vedic injunctions. Prithu Maharaj had already explained the duty of the king or a government. So government should conduct in a way that one is automatically elevated to Krishna consciousness. So King Prithu wanted his citizens to cooperate fully with him because Prithu Maharaj, as a perfect king, got elevated to the heavenly planets. The citizens who cooperated with his methods would also be elevated with him. So Maharaj Prithu says, my dear respectable ladies and gentlemen, according to the authoritative statements of Shastra, there must be a supreme authority who is able to award the respective benefits of our present activities. Otherwise, why should there be persons who are unusually beautiful and powerful both in this life and in the life after death? So here Prithu Maharaj is establishing the Supreme Personality as having a form and wants to raise his citizens to the standard of God consciousness. So until now, he was just talking about the duties, Varnashram, how their actions will affect their outcomes as well as the king's outcomes. Now, slowly and gradually, he's moving towards God consciousness. He's trying to prove, because they are both atheists and theists in that assembly. So he's trying to prove to all the theists who are God believers, so that they don't get bewildered when atheists start talking about that there is no God. So as mentioned earlier in this assembly, there were different types of men present. So he was specifically speaking to those who are not atheists. In previous verses, it was mentioned that Prithu Maharaj advised the citizens to become a Dhokshajadiya, which means God conscious or Krishna conscious. So in the following verses, he specifically presents the authority of God based on Shastra. So according to the Vedic system, one who does not abide by the orders of the Vedas is called a Nastik or atheist. So in order to regulate the activities of the living entities, God has given us codes, just like a king gives codes of law in a state, and whoever breaks the law is punished. So similarly, the Lord has given the infallible knowledge of the Vedas, which are not contaminated by the 4 defects of human life. And we all know the 4 defects: the tendency to commit mistakes, to be illusioned, to cheat, and imperfect senses. So when we do not take direction from the Vedas, but act whimsically according to our own choice, we are sure to be punished by the laws of the Lord. And how he's punished, how he punishes everybody, one has to take different types of bodies in the form of 84 crore species. Now, Prithu Maharaj is instructing the citizens in Bhakti Yoga. Now, slowly and gradually, he's moving one step ahead. So, just like the Ganges water, which emanates from the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, immediately cleanses the mind and increases spiritual or Krishna consciousness. Similarly, when a devotee takes shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and possesses some good humanly qualities, he can immediately cleanse all misunderstanding or mental speculation and all the dirt that has accumulated in the minds during innumerable birth. And then they can manifest renunciation. So after taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, a devotee never comes back to this material existence, which is full of threefold miseries. Now, how can one do devotional service? So Maharaj Prithu says that if one engage in devotional service with full confidence, without any reservation, according to one's abilities and the occupations in which they are situated, then they will surely be successful in achieving the final objective of their lives, that is, transcend this material world and go to the spiritual world. So he continues. So he says we have to follow. So until now he was talking about the Shastra. So now he is bringing other aspects also. So he says that we have to follow Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya, to not only follow in the footsteps of the Vedas, but also of sadhus. So he lists out some names of the sadhus. So we must learn from the personal behavior of great personalities like Swayambhu Manu, Uttanpad, Dhruv Maharaj, Priyavrat Maharaj, and Maharaj Anga, who was Maharaj Prithu's grandfather. And also the great Mahajanas like Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj. So you must follow them because they all are theists and they believe in the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who carries a club. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur stresses on the fact that Supreme Lord has a beautiful form, which this verse proves that he's a carrier of a club. All the great personalities mentioned above agree that in this world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the only bestower of the benedictions of dharma, that is religion, artha, economic development, kama, sense gratification, and moksha, liberation, or elevation to the high heavenly planets. Except for some abominable persons like his father Vena, who was the grandson of death personified and who was bewildered on the path of religion. So now let's see what will happen with them. Prithu Maharaj is explaining who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and what are his features. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and not contaminated by this material world. Although he is concentrated spirit soul without material variety, just for the benefit of the conditioned soul, he accepts different types of sacrifice that are performed with various material elements, rituals, mantras, and even that which is offered to different demigods according to their interests and desires. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all pervading, but he is also manifested in different types of bodies, which arise from the combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. For example, we see Varadev, Vamandev, Narsimhadev, all have different bodies, different types of occupational duties and all that. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. And he is also the supreme spiritual master. All of you citizens on the surface of the globe who have a relationship with me and are worshipping him by dint of your occupational duties are bestowing your mercy upon me. Therefore, O my citizens, I thank you. Prithu Maharaj, I think I missed one slide in between. Prithu Maharaj now gives his final instructions. Prithu Maharaj is described as an unchallenged king and one who possessed the scepter for ruling all the 7 islands on the surface of the globe. No one can disobey his orders except the saintly persons, the Brahmanas, and the descendants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Vaishnavas. So Srila Prabhupada explains here the word askhalita indicates that orders by the king could not be disobeyed by anybody in the entire world. However, Prithu Maharaj had no control over Brahman Kula because they refer to the learned scholars in Vedic knowledge, nor over the Vaishnavas who are above the considerations of Vedic knowledge. So why is that? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Achyuta Gotra means that except for those in the Lord's family who are equal to the Lord. So it refers to Vaishnavas who do not come under any Varna ashram because they come under the Achyut Gotra, which is Lord's name. Therefore, he respected the Brahmanas as they are the Acharyas for the Vedas. And he respected the Vaishnavas because they are the Gurus for various mantras that are used in worship. Srila Prabhupada concludes from the facts presented in this verse that following the Vedic principles, the king controlled people in general until they come to the platform of Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, who are then not under any control of anyone. So during Vedic times, the king used to frequently organize sacrificial ceremonies and encourage his citizens to follow the regulative principles. And hence he would slowly and gradually raise the level of consciousness of his citizens. So in the 8 verses from 37 to 44, Prithu Maharaj glorifies the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. He says that the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are glorified by their characteristic power of tolerance, penance, knowledge, and education. By dint of all these spiritual assets, Vaishnavas are more powerful than royalty. So it is therefore advised that no one must exhibit their material prowess before these two communities and must not offend them at any cost. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the foremost amongst all great personalities, obtained the opulence and reputation by worshipping the lotus feet of those Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So we hear that in Yudhishthir Maharaj's Rajsriya Yagya, Sri Krishna accepted the service of washing the feet of his visitors. He personally washed the feet of his Brahmana friend Sudama when he visited him in Dwarka. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage in service without any reservation, because he is very dear to him, and Brahmana and Vaishnavas are dear to him, and they are very dear to him. So by regular service to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, one can clear the dirt from his heart and thereby enjoy supreme peace and liberation from material attachment. It is stated that in this world, there is no fruitive activity superior to serving the Brahmin class. For this can bring pleasure to even the demigods, for whom sacrifices are recommended. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta, eats through the fire sacrifices offered in the names of the different demigods, he does not take as much pleasure in eating through fire as he does in accepting offerings through the mouths of learned sages and devotees. So that is why we see that in all Vedic ceremonies, there is a Brahman Bhoj at the end, which is given very high priority. So in Brahminical culture, Brahmana's transcendental position is extremely maintained, is eternally maintained, because the injunctions of the Vedas are accepted with faith, full mind control and meditation. Maharaj Pithu says here, I beg the blessings of all of you that I may perpetually carry on my crown, the dust of the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas until the end of my life. So why does he say this? Because he who carries the dust of the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas on his head will very soon be relieved of all the reactions that arise from their sinful life, and eventually they develop all good and desirable qualities that will satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whoever acquires these Brahminical qualifications and good behavior, who is grateful, who takes shelter of experienced persons, gets all the opulence in the world. Therefore, Prithu Maharaj prays that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his associates, be pleased with the Brahman class, with the cows, and with him. So after hearing Prithu Maharaj speak so nicely, all demigods, the denizens of Pitraloka, the Brahmanas, the saintly persons who are all present in that meeting, congratulated him by expressing their goodwill. All the saintly Brahmanas addressed Prithu Maharaj, O best of the warriors, O father of this globe, may you be blessed with a long life, for you have great devotion to the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of all the universe. Then everyone present there, the audience, declared that the Vedic conclusion is that one can conquer the heavenly planets by the action of the Putra, or a son. They meant for the most sinful Vena, who had been killed by the curse of the Brahmanas, will now be delivered from the darkest region of hellish life by his son Maharaj Prithu. So just like Hiranyakashipu, who was always very sinful and who defied the supremacy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, entered into the darkest region of the hellish life. But by the grace of his son, Prahlad Maharaj, he was also delivered and went back home, back to Godhead. The audience said, Dear King Prithu, your reputation is the purest of all, for you are preaching the glories of the most glorified of all, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Lord of all the Brahmanas. Due to our great fortune, we have you as a master, and we think that we are living directly under the agency of the Lord. Our dear Lord, it is your occupational duty to rule over the citizens, but this is not a very wonderful task for the personality like you. Why? Because you are so affectionate in seeing to the interest of the citizens, and because you're full of mercy. And that is the greatness of your character. The citizens said, Today you have opened our eyes and revealed how to cross to the other side of the ocean of darkness. By our past deeds and by the arrangement of superior authority, we are entangled in a network of fruitive activities and have lost sight of the destination of life. Thus, we have been wandering within the universe. Dear Lord, you are situated in your pure existential position of goodness. Therefore, you are the perfect representative of the Supreme Lord. You are glorified by your own prowess, and thus you are maintaining the entire world by introducing Brahminical culture and protecting everybody as a Kshatriya king. So while citizens were thus praying to the most powerful King Prithu, the four Kumaras, who were as bright as the sun, arrived on the spot. So next week we will hear about Maharaj Prithu's meeting with the four Kumaras. This brings us to the end of the chapter 21 of Canto 4. Thank you all for your time. Please forgive me for any mistakes I may have committed, and please correct me if I said something wrong. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaः. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Guru and Gaurang. I hand over the call to the host. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mukta Mataji, Dandat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. What a beautiful class, Mataji, again with the beautiful slides. Thank you so much for explaining the before chapter summary and coming on to this chapter. And you have explained how Prithu Maharaj looks and how his glories, everything very detailedly explained, Mataji. Thank you so much. I don't have any questions. I will open the forum for the realizations and questions. Hare Krishna, please go ahead if there is anybody having any realizations or any questions.
Hare Krishna Mukta Mataji, a very nice class Mataji. Thank you so much for sharing. I noticed you prepared so much, including Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary also you prepared, looks like, right?
Yes,
very nice, Mataji. Yeah, nice to hear Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur commentary also. And then the highlights for me from this chapter was how Prithu Maharaj was stressing on the importance of a ruler or somebody who has dependents, how he is supposed to do his duty. And he was considering himself in humility as been ordained by Supreme Lord himself to do this duty like that. So there's as a service mode, I was noticing that. That was my appreciation, Mataji, for this chapter. Thank you so much, Mataji, for sharing.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your realization. There are so many takeaways. I thought when I picked up this chapter, I thought there won't be much to speak about it. But there are so many instructions for everybody, for everyone to learn and take away.
Yes, Mataji. What was your favorite from this chapter, Mataji?
For me, I think the realization that the king was teaching the citizens how to be God conscious and the subtle nature of the material laws of material nature. So I think those were the two things that I learned from this chapter.
Very nice.
How everybody is connected with each other, and the karma and the laws of karma. How everybody's actions are influencing each other's.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much, Mataji, for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mataji, thank you so much for giving this beautiful session. I could only hear the last part, like for the last 10 minutes. But I will go back and listen to the recording, Mataji. Really grateful to Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Indu Mataji. Thank you, Sundaranand Prabhu. So thank you everyone for joining. We'll close the call here. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyo chapatidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, assembled devotees ki jai. Hare Krishna. For closing the call for today.
Hare
Jai.